Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. So I want to ask, as far as, individuals who are looking to get into a career, right out of college or pivot
Yeah.
into a new career, and maybe they don't really know how to start or where to start, but they don't necessarily want to invest in like a career coach right now. Are there any other ways of doing it? Is there any like free options out there to kind of help guide people, through the process of that?
Yeah. So I kind of have two camps on this. One is careers is not curing cancer. There's a
Wow.
99.99% probability that someone in the world has done what you want to do before you, right?
Mhm.
Literally, it's networking. It's finding people who have done maybe 5 years ahead of you, 10 years ahead of you, 15 years ahead of you, and just put yourself out there, network, and say, hey, Sabrina, you're doing some really cool things, and I just want to like get in front of you and talk with you and hear your story and figure out, how you've been successful in your life and what does that mean to you, and how has that evolved, within your life and in your career, right? You can learn a lot from others. And that's why I say, career exploration and career clarity and career clustering or pathing, whatever terminology you subscribe to. It's not that hard. It really is the motivation, the empowerment, the audacity to raise your hand and say, hi, I'm Nadia. Sabrina, you're doing cool stuff. Would you want to connect? Right. And that's where that getting comfortable, getting uncomfortable really comes in, because not every single person do you reach out to is going to give you the time of day, right? Like not everybody is as welcoming and open and available as you made yourself, Sabrina, to me, right?
Yeah.
So, some people would say, you send 10 LinkedIn messages, for example, and you hear back from two. Oh, that's a 20% conversion rate. How terrible is that, right? Some of it's a numbers game, of course, as with anything. But instead of focusing on the 8 people who didn't respond, ghosted, were unhelpful, what can you do with those 2 people who said yes, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some other free resources, people like me, I have social media. I have a blog with 6 other contributors who tell our story. Not everybody's story is the same. Like you said, we all have different lived experiences. I have a learned experience within careers and career coaching. So I read a lot of scholarship. I'm meant to be creating scholarship in the space of careers and professionalism, as a university professor, but then also just in my own life, right? Of the more people I get in front of, the more people I talk to, the more stories that I hear, that incites me, right? That gets me excited. That's like, that questions things within me. That's like, oh, cool. Like, that's really cool that you did that. Like, how can I interpret that? How can I reflect on that? How can I use that in my own journey going forward? So definitely blogs. I know people don't like reading long content anymore, but if somebody tells you what you should do with your career in 140 characters, I would question its validity. There's some work in our lives that you need to put in the time. If you don't have the money, invest the time, invest the mental commitment, invest the physical commitment, and the emotional of putting yourself out there. asking for what you need, understanding what you need from your network and within yourself. And even if you don't have the money, totally fine. The last thing, and it does cost a little money, however, I'm a huge advocate of it, is the book called Designing Your Life. And that is really great for people who, as you pointed out, are making a pivot or are just starting their career. I teach this in one of the courses at my university, and Designing Your Life book came out of Stanford. It's two professors out in Stanford, but it has mass, general market appeal. It's a New York Times bestseller. You can get it on Amazon for $20-25. And even if you don't buy it, Google it. There are free worksheets. There are chapters of the book put out online, videos from the professors themselves talking about designing your life. And again, its whole subscription is around designing and building something that works for you. We don't just have one perfect version of ourselves and the opportunities and career pathing ahead of us. We think of things in a multitude of ways, right?
Absolutely.
So if I was the 1970s and I was a salesperson selling Encyclopedia Britannica, right? I'm worried about my job in 2022, right? I don't have a job. The first company, AOL, who was charging for website browsing, right? You in industry, you get outmoded, you get replaced, you get automatized, right? So to be able to reimagine and redefine your career, not once, not twice. Some people it's 3 to 5, 7, 8 times in their lifetime, to really accommodate where you are with things and what's happening in the market, what's happening in your personal life. So the internet's going to be your best friend. There are definitely long form, content out there. And then people, as much as we talk about the job search being technical with, optimization of your LinkedIn and your resume and job boards and all that stuff, people want to hire people. People, especially right now when we're working from home and people need to be autonomous, people need to be empowered to make decisions on their own in a virtual setting, right? People want to hire people they trust, that come recommended, that have a level of confidence in their own ability to manage themselves, and ultimately feel good about, right? That I don't know what it was about Sabrina. I just had a good feeling about her, and that comes from somewhere, right? And usually that's familiarness, it's sameness, it's likeness, it's having good interview conversations or networking conversations that break down all the professionalism and really just have two human beings sitting across the table from each other.
Absolutely. I agree with you. While you were talking, I kind of was like envisioning somebody doing this. And, you mentioned the internet or, LinkedIn would probably be another good one. Um, Individuals who are interested in a certain category, topic, career, whatever, would you recommend them to reach out to people who already have that position and just kind of like, "Hey, will you chat with me?" Is that
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, ask this fastball questions, you can come in with some softballs just to loosen up. But ask really specific questions like, what do you hate about your job? What's your number one
Wow.
most challenging thing? What have you failed at? And how's your management support, right? You can get some really honest, authentic conversation and dialogue going when you're willing to go there.
Yeah.
You can approach people on two strategy fronts. One is if you are specifically interested in a company. So, hey, I want to get hired at Google or Dell or whoever. Find people who work at Google. Find people who work at Facebook. Right. Ask them the hard questions. The other way to do it is just to find people that are already connected to you in some way, people that you admire. People, like you said, who have a job title that you aspire to or are inspired by, and ask those bigger questions, right? I don't think that I want to become a full-time podcaster or full-time marketer, but that doesn't prevent me from finding someone who's willing to talk in that space and just more understand their story and more understand how they got to where they are. It's been something that I've definitely been acutely aware of of the previous entrepreneurs who've had that conversation with me when I was starting my business. I just actually did an Instagram conversation with someone last night up in Canada who literally just filed their version of LLC like last week. And she's working in academia, doing a part-time side hustle. And yeah, just being able to do that whole entrepreneurship 10% thing, right? I'm 10% ahead of where you are, so I have a little bit of authority. Let me tell you what to do, what not to do. Take the stuff that works for you, leave the stuff that doesn't work for you. And at the end of the day, you've made a connection, if not anything else.
100%. I love that you just brought up the word side hustle, because that's kind of, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, as far as, I see a lot of back and forth, with a lot of that. I'm a huge advocate of Gary Vaynerchuk, huge advocate of Grant Cardone, and a lot of times they have differing thoughts as far as a side hustle or focusing on only one thing and one thing only. So I kind of wanted your input on that, as far as, what does that mean? What is it? Should we have one? Should we not have one? For me, it seems like a good way to kind of step into possibly a pivot. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. What you just said, it's a great way to move into an area that you want to take a little bit of time to get into. I can go back and forth on the whole focus of attention, right?
Yeah.
I tend to be pretty committed to the things in which I have an interest and focus on, but I tend to move through them and revisit them quite frequently. So right now, I'm a university professor teaching my full-time job. I adjunct for a couple of business classes. I have my side hustle. I'm learning city planning. I'm getting my third master's in marketing right now. So for me, it's not putting all my eggs into one basket, and not having one big thing that is like a laser focus attention on. With that, though, when I am showing up in those buckets or those spaces, right? Like tonight, I've got assignments due in one of my marketing classes. When I'm in it, I'm fully in it. I am 100% committed to what's in front of me at that time, right? Same with our conversation today. Before this, I was on university calls. After this, I'm going through university training. So I understand that not everybody operates that way, right? In order to give their full selves to something, they need to let other things go. For me, it keeps it fun. It keeps it exciting. It's a little manic at times, but that's what works for me. I have ADHD. I have always been intellectually stimulated in a multitude of different areas. I don't have kids. I don't have pets, right? So this is me. This is, I know this about myself of operating at 125 to 150% at all times. So it really needs to fit you. What do you want from your side hustle or side business? Why? Right? I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan, and starting with why. And there's so many people who do what I do, right? And they probably do it better, and they probably charge more money than I do, and they have bigger social media audiences and bigger reaches and all that stuff. I don't even look at that. I focus on why am I doing the things that I'm doing, and how do I feel about that? Again, that intersectionality of emotion in our work is instrumental, and it's key. And when you get to a point that things are no longer serving you, and that's even true within, my business. I love writing. I love my content creation, but it's not really a good use of my time to sit and create 45 graphics on Canva to post to Instagram, right? And it's taking a step back and say, just because I can do these things doesn't mean I should be, or there isn't a better way to do it, or this is no longer serving me personally, right? I don't think everyone does need a side hustle. If you feel as if though you are fulfilled within your work, your needs are being met, and you're happy with that, Don't fix what ain't broke, right? Get real with it. Versus where I was coming from, was wanting to connect with other human beings outside of my core demographic at the university, right? Getting to dabble in the possibilities, getting to explore identities beyond my own, right? And so, yeah, I very much subscribe to the hustle culture and boss lady and all that stuff when I was younger. Now that as we're saying about getting older in our career, now for me, it's really about doing less. And not in a lazy way of boo, do less, but it really is being more intentional with the things that you're doing. How is it serving you? How is it bringing, just fulfillment to your life, and just getting rid of all the stuff that is no longer serving you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that word, more intentional, because I think all of us can be living our life that way and thinking that way, you know.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. And for a lot of people, it's the new year wake up call. The amount of people who DM me or sent me, on Instagram or LinkedIn, or just inquired on my website. They're like, well, it's January, my job still sucks. I guess I should probably do some career coaching, right? We have these, kind of cyclical opportunities, right? January for many people in the New Year's time. For my students, it's usually graduation, May,
Wow.
August, December, where it goes, all right, I've gotten here. I don't know where here is, but I need to figure out where I'm going next, right?
Yeah.
So if you've been waiting for hey, this is your time, for many people, this is your time. I'm going to post on Instagram tomorrow. If you've been waiting for a sign that you need to update your resume, the new year is a very good time to do that. Not saying you need to go out and get a new job tomorrow, but just having it in your mind, being more aware. What are your 2022 goals? How are you going to achieve them? SMART goals, right? How will you know when you've achieved them? Putting some metrics in place and really connecting with that, so that your work life, your personal life, your whatever life has purpose, it has direction, and you feel like you are working towards something.
Yeah, you mentioned a resume. Should we be updating our resume even if we are in a career? Like, is that like that's something we should be doing like every couple of years or something?
So yeah, it's interesting you say that. So my new role that I just took at my university as a faculty member, I only get reviewed once every 3 years.
Oh,
And that's super intimidating to me because I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to remember what I did 3 years ago when I can't even remember what I did 30 minutes ago or 3 weeks ago, right? And for me, what I do, and people feel comfortable in different ways with this, have a book, have a folder, virtual, digital. I prefer Excel or OneNote. And I just literally have a running list, not every day, but maybe once a week, of my successes, my challenges, my accomplishments, things that I'm proud of, growth opportunities that I could have done something better, I could have said something differently, and then how I plan to work on that going forward. So it can be for some people bullet journaling. For others, like me, it's a more organized, formal Excel spreadsheet. And unless you are looking for a new job, for most people, it's just always ticking along in the background, and you update it when you feel like you need to update it. Once a year is a very good rule of thumb for just straight up working professionals, right? For young professionals, probably once a quarter, if not once every 6 months, because you are
wow.
learning so much. And as a young person, you're saying yes to all the opportunities, right? You're getting pulled into projects and given opportunities to grow, right? Not to say that we don't grow in our late 30s and early 40s, but we have a groove, right? We
Yeah.
feel good about our work. I am to the point now where, again, I'm learning, incremental things throughout my day, right?
Yeah.
And that lead to something bigger. So for young professionals, professionals, college students for sure, probably once a quarter, once every 6 months. For working professionals, probably once a year. That typically aligns with most organizations' annual review. So updating your resume for an annual review and being able to bring all of that data to your supervisor and say, hey, let's talk about a promotion. Hey, let's talk about a raise here because
Wow.
I've brought the receipts
Yeah.
on how good of a job that I've been doing, my
Wow.
impact and my value within this organization.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And the other thing that I was kind of thinking about while you were talking is the excuses. So, before I got into what I do, there would be times when I hated my job so much, and I'd be like, screw this, I'm going to find a new job. All I have to do is just write up a resume. And it was always that whole thing of like having to create the resume is what
Yeah.
kept me in my job for so much longer. Because you can't move forward with anything until you have that piece of paper like set. And so then everything would like calm down, then it's chilled. I still hate my job though. So then you stay a little long, then something catastrophic. And then I gotta find a new job. This sucks, but I just have to create that resume. So if we do what you're telling us to do and just always kind of have it at a good point, you might just have to add a couple sentences. But instead of going like the entire work career without writing
Yeah.
anything down and having to like mentally figure out how to write down all the crap that you do every single
Yeah.
day to update it, that is absolutely brilliant. And I've never thought of that. That's great.
Yeah, and I'll also say, I have used myself a resume writer, and it was a dang good looking resume.
Wow.
I looked at it and said, "Is that me?" Right? Oh my gosh, this is amazing. What I do in my coaching is much more coaching versus doing. So
Right.
I work with clients to understand the value of a resume, why you need one, how it needs to differ from LinkedIn, how it needs to be a companion to your cover letter. Yes, you need to write a cover letter. And I really empower and teach people how to write their own resumes, not for the job that you're looking for today, but to your point, for every single job after that. Because you do need to reimagine what your resume looks like. I would not use the same resume to get my faculty job as I would my administration job. And that's still even in the same industry, even the same university, let alone if you want to move from a nonprofit role into corporate or academia into an international position in a foreign country that doesn't even use our type of formatted resumes that we do here in the US, right? So understanding and teaching how to do the resume is going to be such a much better investment in yourself, because again, you're investing in yourself versus a resume writer. And I have written resumes for people. So, this is not me saying boo resume writers, because I am one myself. But it's understanding that analogy of, fishing and teaching people how to fish and all that stuff, right? Teach someone how to fish and they can eat for a lifetime versus me just giving you fish or selling you fish.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right? If you're comfortable paying a resume writer every time you need a new resume for a new job or updates or whatever, empowerment, do that. You got the money, honey, use the money. If you want to make the investment in yourself, in teaching yourself how to do it and feeling some authenticity and genuineness and connectedness to your resume, learn how to do it. Take the time, invest in yourself, because that was really the part that was missing from my own resume. That I looked at it and it didn't feel me. It didn't feel authentic. I said, I would hire this person, and I'm not sure this person is me, right? So it's getting to a place where whatever your materials look like, and I do have templates and examples I share with clients. So it gives you some ideas, but ultimately it needs to reflect you. It needs to feel good to you.
Awesome.